Hey, welcome to the award-winning Ed Brown Show. What we're going to do, we're going to tell you about historical sites, and not just historical sites, but women that were really involved with the historical sites of Prince George County. And we have with us Councilman Nancy Dixon. Tell me, Ms. Dixon, what's that Saxon? I asked you about that Dixon. How do you get that Dixon in there? Everybody knows you as Nancy Saxon, and you're a councilman there, and you the first lady of Prince George County, I would say.
Well, the thing is that the Dixon came in because every time I would go someplace and somebody would say, I know her, say she's a Dixon from Anacostia, historical Anacostia. And then one guy suggested, well, put Nancy Dixon Saxon in there, and then we'll know, we know that's you. And so we wanted to be asking, even though my family is one older families. We came from T Street Hill in Garfield, and that's where I grew up.
That's where Dixon
the Dixons
are. A lot of people don't know that because I didn't know that.
The Dixons lived out there.
I knew Nancy Saxon. Because you've been very active in Prince George County for years now. You're still on the council board, right?
Yes, I am.
All right, congratulations. And now this is, this is a Women's Month. This has been declared, I know, in Prince George County, and we're going to talk about the heritage of Prince George County as far as the women that were responsible for it. Nancy, okay, let's start with, you want to give us a little background about your project there first.
Okay, the project that I'm working on now is that I'm working with the Friends for the Historical Preservation of Fairmont Heights, the late Margaret Brooks, who was a council person, and she worked with an in park and planning. Sam Park and them helped her to get the group going in 1992 with Mildred Gray and there was another little group of them, Miss Armstrong. So as they got older, I'm not going to say older, as did Miss Brooks started getting so that she couldn't take it over. She asked me, Nancy, you're interested in history, and you're on the Historical and Cultural Trust, Historical Preservation. Would you take the project and make sure it would work and carry it on? And that's when that oral history book came up, and did an oral history on some of the women. And Mrs. Osborne in there, if you see, she is co-chairing the Friends for the Historical Preservation for Fairmont Heights. And what it is, like up in the library, Fairmont Heights Library was one of the first libraries because it was 3 of them that was open in Prince George's County, and Fairmont Heights was one of them. And that was, I guess, for the people of color, because Bonnie John's husband, he drew the plans for that library.
She was on the school board, right?
And he drew the plans for that library. And so up on the landing, on the top floor, this is where we got the history for Fairmont Heights. It wasn't for Jack Johnson and Hal Burnett, and there was the ones that say that landing wasn't being used, and they said that Nancy, you couldn't have it, and to put the history up there and afford the people could come in and look at it. So the only thing is up in there is the Pittman, who married Booker T. Washington, who married Portia, who was a pianist. And they lived in the town of Fairmont Heights.
Well, how many sites in Fairmont Heights? It's amazing. You were telling me 95 sites are declared on the historical sites.
There are about 95 properties in Fairmont Heights that Park and Planning is Hal Burnett. Them are looking at. He had made that in the paper that could on the National Register. They were looking at. But we have like 22 or 23 houses that we know that either been historical or the registered sites, or they are looking at them to be registered, and we're still going through that. But the main one, getting back to the women who had this.
Well, let's start with Mrs. Brooks. Tell us about her.
Ms. Brooks was a council person, and she's the one that worked with Sam Parker and Susan Pearl. The other one that set up this Friends for the Historical Preservation of Fairmont Heights. and they got to have the bylaws, and they came through to see the sites like Grace Methodist and the different churches that should be recognized. And like her house is on one of the houses. If you see that on the diagram, they have those some of the houses. Miss Donaldson, the house is right there.
Yeah, Donaldson, right.
That's the house that's sitting in the center. That house came up with the Sears and Roebuck. You know, they came with the Sears.
What was it, Sears and Roebuck?
They're Sears and Roebuck's house, and they bought them in packages.
Oh,
And
no
that's-
kidding.
yeah.
Boy, that's been some years ago.
Some years ago.
You could buy a package house at
House in
Sears
Green,
and Roebuck.
like up on 61st Avenue. And the other thing is on there is the Osborne house. You know, that house was when somebody that worked in D.C., they had the house, and that's one of the historical little sites. And our historical sites, and Ruth Brown, she had
Yeah,
quite.
tell us about Ruth Brown. She was very active in Prince George County
She
for a
was
long time.
Ruth Brown was very, very active. Ruth Brown was active with the NAACP.
Right.
She was at the school, and she was with Mr. Late Mayor Gray and Mrs. Gray, Mildred Gray. They looked at the school system. Mrs. Gray did, and Ruth Brown, I understand, went to Bowie and integrated a bank, you know, way back there. And Ruth Brown sat on HBC commission. And Ruth Brown was over the years trying to get us on the National Register. Back in 1923. And so I was
1923. Wow.
And so, in following that, came along, and I said, well, why not? And this is when I went to Jack Johnson because of Madeline Richardson. She was a mayor, and I told her, come on, and we would go. And if it wasn't for Jack pushing it, you know, the county exec, then I think, and Sam Parker made us long. And this year, this year, they put us on the National Register. We've been declared.
Okay, what about some of the other ladies?
Some of the other ladies in there is
Mrs. Wallace.
Miss Wallace. Miss Wallace lived in the Pinckney house. Now, you know that Pinckney was the stewardess, and he was with the little Roosevelt boy. You know, the Roosevelt boy, like with the big hat, the little boy of color. And they supposed to be some kind of gang in the White House, but they was on the national working tour all over the United States. And they were supposed to come to Fremont Heights, but they never got there. So it's in the Smithsonian. And she, along, other than the Pittman, was the only person that lived in that house. And that's a historical house.
And Mrs. Osborne along
Mrs.
with
Osborne, those are historical houses.
The historical houses.
Right, those
and
are
these were declared historical.
Right, those are
what
we look
years? Recently?
Well, all of them went down this year when they made the final thing with the National Register downtown, the Feds. That's where it went at. But Ruth Brown, she was so instrumental, and she was the first female black mayor for the town of Fremont Heights.
I remember that.
And she worked so hard, and that's why it's so important. And it's so important because we also had some other people, because, you know, in that little area, we had the lady who, this lady, is it Shining?
What's her name?
This lady is Maisie.
Maisie.
Maisie had a house right there on Sheriff Road and 60th Avenue. And when they would take the children to bring them in from the courts from D.C., she would have them there for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And when on Monday, when they had to take them to court. So Maisie, she had a little store, and then she drove the cab. She was very instrumental in the town of Fremont Heights. And then we can't forget Mrs. Luckett, and we had a lady, Miss Estridge, Louise Estridge. They were with the homemakers, and they had done things in the town that saw that the town would move smoothly. And you had the senior club, which they used to be a part of, and they the ones used to meet in the library. And Mrs. Kelly, she used to meet at the library. They were to deal with the illiteracy program. And so, therefore, we need to keep that library intact and not let nobody just come in and take it from us, because that's your history surrounding that. And the other part is that the county have historical money, and every year I try to get one of the houses to apply for the grant. But when you apply for the grant, you got to go through it, and you got to know it, cross your eyes. And
Well, what about renovation? The money for renovating these historical sites.
You can get
what's
money.
the procedure for that?
All you got to do is apply for some of the money that the county got. It was $500,000, but this time I think Baker knocked it down to $350,000. So the only one that is still there, we are working with them because I sit on that board. The only one that was proved is Grace Methodist Church, and Grace Methodist Church is moving right along. And then you had the monument, the Veterans Monument, where Campbell had the women. They call themselves a group of women, beautification. And they had started getting money to get the little monument. And so that money is still there. And I'm hoping that they will move on with that. And when the next Armistice Day comes, what they can do is that they can have a celebration there. But the town itself we need to be more educated to what's going on. And we need to apply for this money. Like coming on March the 10th at the library, the state will be coming there.
Is that a grant?
It's a state money.
It's a grant workshop.
It's a grant.
How do you qualify for that?
You historical, if you got a historical property, and you can apply for this money. And this money is from $10,000 up to $100,000. And Mr. Mack, who is over the commissioner for the state, he keeps saying, Nancy, we got to get Fairmont some of this money in Fairmont Heights. And on March the 10th, from 11 to 1 at the Fairmont Heights Library, they're coming down to the state and walk everybody through how they can get this money. And we're hoping that if they have any problems, what we're going to do is sit down with them afterwards.
So actually, park and planning, the program is set with park and planning.
Right.
Now, where is that going to be held and what date?
At Fairmont Heights Library on March the 10th from 11 to 1. And you need to come out if you think that your house is historical, you got a historical property, and sit down and listen to what they have to say.
That's for the entire Prince George's County. And you were giving me some information about Egg Harbor. Tell us about
Egg Harbor.
Yeah, how that fits into historical sites.
Egg Harbor is, down on the Patuxent, down in southern part of the Maryland. And it's where the boats used to come up. They used to come up to the water and they get all the food and everything. People used to go to meet the boats because I had a lawyer, A. Slater Clark. He was telling me they used to go down there and meet his father and them when they come up on the boat to get the food and everything for the cow. So they are a historical, town. And most of these towns, like Fairmont Heights, is still 90% of people of color. Egg Harbor is the same way. You may have one or two, one house, so not. And even Alex Williams lived in Egg Harbor, and now he lives up in
the former state's attorney.
Yep, our state prosecutor, and that would make it so important. And like in Fairmont Heights and North Brentwood, I think they are a majority of minorities. And the thing about it is that Fairmont Heights, we still have all minorities on our council and as mayor. Egg Harbor is the same way, and North Brentwood is the same way. And I also think that Glen Arden is. But I think that, you have other non-minorities as people working for you. And that is very interesting in that they still have being a historical towns and all that.
Well, that's along George Farmer Highway. To give us an idea where Fairmont Heights is located. Some people out there may not be familiar with it.
Fairmont Heights is between Eastern Avenue, across the border from D.C., Sheriff Road, and Martin Luther King Avenue and Eastern Avenue. We're in a little triangle. And I think we're about 2-point-some acres of land in there. We have 24 streets.
You have 24 streets.
24 streets. And the town have majority homes. We have like a couple of businesses now. We still have Ebony and Tommy Broadwater where the ribs are. That's our been chili bowl for the county. And we have the Chapel Oaks Firehouse. You know the Chapel Oaks Firehouse.
Is that part of Fairmount Heights?
No, it's right on the line.
That's a chapel.
It's right on the line.
Right.
It's right on Sheriff Road. And you know the first firehouse was in Fairmount Heights for one day. And you know the firehouse.
What do you mean, one day?
I understand the firehouse moved in the daytime, and the next day they moved up on Sheriff Road.
Oh, I see.
Right? And you know Mr. Gorham, who lost all his family, he was the one that's instrumental in the firehouse, Chapel Oaks Firehouse, the volunteer firehouse. And we have a street named after him.
Oh, I see.
And we had back there with Paris Glendenny and Lake Trotter, they came with a HUD project for the first townhouses for, low and moderate income, and we have that.
In Fairmount Heights.
In Fairmount Heights, the Spriggs brothers,
But they're not listed on the historical site.
No, they're not.
No,
But
they wouldn't be.
They're not on that historical.
No.
But the town is historical. The town itself is on the National Register. And then you got certain houses they look at. The town is...
You're saying basically 95
houses,
so far. Okay. So name some of the people that were involved in there, ladies. Since this is Women's Month there, we discussed Ms. Osborne. What about the other ladies?
Miss Wallace.
Ms. Wallace. What about Charlotte Turner?
Miss Turner.
Yes. She's in here, and we discussed Ms. Wallace. All of these people made contributions.
They made contributions to the town.
And actually, this book what I have here is put out by Park and Planning, right? And Park and Planning is the one that basically is financing. What about volunteers? Now, you know, every project, especially a municipal project, a government project needs volunteers. You want to make an appeal for that?
The thing is that back when Wayne Kerr was there, we worked with, and I was on this project with Eastside Village project. That was on DC side with on Prince George's side, and that was going down Eastern Avenue. And those houses, some of them are old historical houses. And what is happening now, the former mayor, Johnny Saxon, we've been talking.
That's not a relative of yours.
No, it's not. And what we are doing now is that we are reorganizing the Eastside Village project along with them and the businesses and the church. It's called Newborn Church. It's been there in the town, and our businesses, and we are reorganizing to see what we can do to do the rest of the little houses, historical houses there, and the houses, and see if we can get funding for it.
Okay. Where do you get all your funding? Comes from Park and Planning, or come from the state or federal government?
No private people like the Pittman House. That's up on Eastern Avenue. And the house now, since the earthquake, the house is tilted some more. And so what the state is trying to do, we're working with Park and Planning to see if we can get money for that house to help the ladies.
To renovate.
Get it.
And all these homes, I take it, people are still living in them.
Yeah, everybody live in the houses. The only place that somebody's not living in is the school. That's the 9-room school. The only 9-room school I understand.
9-room schoolhouse.
Was back there.
That was one of the first schoolhouses. Was the first schoolhouse in
the state of Maryland. They say that Mr. Gray, I read what Mr. Gray said, and he was the one who was instrumental with that. And then it went on and it turned over to a church. And now the sitting there going, is in disrepair.
Well, that's what the other thing too is that you have these sites in renovation. Sometimes individuals are living in homes like this. Renovation is out of sight, money wise, and a historical site generally has some strict rulings on renovating. I mean, you can't paint the house polka dot or anything, or either add a storage shed. And now, what is the procedure for that, and how do you finance that with people living in the homes?
What you have to do now, since we've been declared as a historical town on the National Register, is just like we go to the county to get permits, but they go to HBC, the historic where Betty Hewlett them are, and they go to them with the permits. Because I got a permit in that came in the mail where a gentleman went down and wanted to put some commercial. And they let them know that that is for the town. It's single-family houses. So, and then you go there and you take your plans, and they decide. And they'll let you know what you can do and what you cannot do. And the other thing is that with the those little historical houses in the town of Fairmont Heights, you know there's weatherization. That's a grant program through housing. And what I'm trying to do is get those little residents in the town of Fairmont Heights to apply for that money, because that is free money. You know, it's come through
the federal government.
Yeah, HUD money, and they won't apply, and they've been asking.
Well, you have to qualify.
Right, if you're seniors, you know.
If you're a senior and you're living in a historical site.
It don't have to be historical.
It doesn't have to be historical.
You can, if they come in and they will come through a new application, then you qualify. They give away free furnaces, free boilers. They will weatherize your house, and you know those houses have been built in the 1900s.
Yeah, what I say, they 100 years old, some of them, easily.
Easily, and they will look at the house, and then if you qualify there's another grant program with housing, and then they'll tell you apply for that. If you apply for that, you can get a roof put on. You can get other things done. And if
well, people really, they're not aware of these things that are available. And what you're doing and what the ladies are doing here, they're spreading the word. And just like this meeting in March, tell us a little more. Let's wrap it up with you telling us a little more about this meeting coming up in March.
Well, this meeting,
and how often do you have the meetings?
Well, this right here.
And who do you contact?
Okay, this is a grant program from the state, and it's once a year. And when they come on the 11th of March, they will know everything. Then the grant money is due, I think, coming up maybe June, and you can get from $10,000 to up to $100,000. All depends if you got your paperwork together. Then you can come back in the summer and go down to a park and planning, and they have another grant program to come under the county exec. And under Betty Hewlett them office, you can apply for money. And you can apply for it, but you got to have your grants right. You got to sit down and do
well, actually, it look like most of the time in these homes you're talking about in Fairmont Heights, it's elderly people, and they need help in doing this. Do you all, the council at Fairmont Heights, provide this information for them to help them to apply for the loans?
Well, since I'm on historical,
and it's a loan, right?
No,
it's a grant. Okay,
it's a grant.
That makes a difference.
And maybe a matching grant. You may have to match it or something, or put the money up first. But nevertheless, it's money that you don't have to pay back. You know, and they need to understand that. But some people say no, don't get it because they're going to put a lien against your house. They don't want to put a lien against your house, you know, and all that. So the thing is, but you got to have the easement. You got to own the property. You got to do your site. You got to go down and get everything done to make sure that you own the property and not somebody else own the property. Some of them, the grants say you live in it for 5 years.
Oh, you have to live in
some of them, the grants, you have to live in it for 5 years. Some of the housing grants. And some of the other grants, you don't have to do that. But when I came to Fairmont Heights years ago.
How many years ago was that?
I came to Fairmont Heights in 1960.
1960.
And then Mr. Gray and Housing, Glendon and them, knew that I came from HEW. And they was having problem, people going and speculators taking people's property because, you know, back then, if they couldn't read it writing too good, somebody tell them sign on something. And they were saying, since I lived there, you know, would I work with the project? And since there was so many complaints, so then I got into more like information referral. I do information referral for non-medical things and medical things. And like these projects, I do information referral. I will refer them to somebody to let them come in. And it's free. But what I really am looking to do, and especially I'll be talking to county exec, that we need to bring in more the interns from the colleges, from Bowie State, from Howard, can come down and sit down with the people, and they can go over the forms and with everything. And like in Bowie, they had Darren Swain. He knew a lot about Fairmont Heights.
Is that right?
Oh, a lot about Fairmont Heights. So there are people out there, but they have to open the doors, you know. And the people at the top.
That's a tough job. Sometimes
no, it ain't.
getting to open the doors, huh?
Now I'm talking about open those doors, but there are people like you go in other communities in Bowie, and they have interns and everything. But it's seen that when you come to Fairmont Heights, everybody want to be the chief, and everybody can't be the chief. You have to work with these college students, like at PG Community College. You got to let them come in and do the work and not stand over top of them. And so, therefore, that's what one of the main things I would like to see. And really, I would like to see it at that Fairmont Heights Library, because being that we have that land, and it was given to us back when Jack Johnson and all of them was okay. And I'm emphasizing to Mr. Baker, you know, this is what needs to stay there. And we have the colleges come in and maintain it, you know, during the hours that it's open. And the library is coming up a little bit.
Now, what about the renovation of the library?
Well, my understanding in the library system, you know, the people at the library system have not came in to talk to the Friends of the Library, which is we are starting to back up now again. And they haven't sit down with, I don't like about it, they have not sit down with the stakeholders. Those are the people who live in the town to say what they want in the library. You just can't come into a place and you're telling people this is what you're going to have. And that's
they have to have input.
No input has been done. So this is when Johnny Saxon saying, I will step up to the bait, and we want to start the Friends of the Historical Library, whether they said or not. They can't do anything to it because that's out there.
That's the organization and everything. Roughly how many people are you in Fairmont Heights?
About now, the last thing that I read, it was 1,494.
1,494.
With the census, the 3,000 census.
But basically, as far as the historical sites is concerned, you have these 95 sites. Do you have these sites marked, like a marker on these sites, so people will know that it's a historical site?
Some people don't want to put markers and things in front of their homes, and Ms. Brooks fought about that the whole time until she, you know, passed. And with the being on the National Register, there's some little plaques they will give you to put out that this is a historical site.
That's what I'm saying, you know. That anyone walking by, they would know that the homes, because some of those homes, the architecture and is just outstanding. You know, they don't build any homes like that now.
No more.
No, you know what I mean, with the layout and everything that they have. You know, seem to me that people would be proud of the fact that it's a historical site. What about the history of Fairmont Heights? A person, how do you get that if a person's interested?
In the history of Fairmont Heights? Yeah. The thing is that when I found all this stuff they were throwing away, I've been going through it, and Park and Planning and Nolan's office, they're going to sit down with me. They're sitting down with me how to preserve it, how to put it on this, and how we can have walking tours on it.
And this is still Women's Month. Remember that. And don't forget, what date is that? March?
March the 10th.
March the 10th meeting. Go there and see Nancy. See you next time.